Hello and welcome to Nawiri Wellness Talks. Today we'll be discussing the topic of parental relationship and how it affects the children's quality of life. And this is for the young ones and the adolescents combined. So the angle that we'll be looking at is what are some of the things that as parents you need to look at that will help to build the relationship. Which then means if you don't do those things, you'll be affecting the quality of your relationship with your child. So one of the things that is very, very critical is the communication between the parents. How the parents communicate with each other is an important factor in the quality of life of the children, because the children observe. They do a lot of observation. So it's important that as a couple, you develop a mechanism that allows for effective communication between yourselves. They should be able to see how you express yourselves when you're happy. They should be able to see how you handle yourself when you're disagreeing. It does not mean that you discuss your disagreements in their presence, but they should be able to see that there's a mechanism that you have where you are able to say, excuse me, I'm feeling disappointed in this matter and I'd like us to discuss it, and you take your discussion away from them. They would then pick that when they are similarly disappointed, they should be able to communicate as well. You should be able to keep your tone, within what is reasonable. Avoid the shouting matches between yourselves, because that sends the message that that is how they ought to communicate, which is not an effective way, and it also raises their stress levels. They don't know if the shouting will translate to something that is more aggressive and possibly violent. So you really want to check how you're communicating. An important piece of communication is the listening aspect. Many of us purport to listen, few of us do. Now, as a couple, it's important that you learn to listen to each other and teach the children as well to listen. Now, what is this listening all about? It means that when the other party is speaking, you listen. And listening involves looking at the person who's speaking and even acknowledging what is being said. It involves reflecting back what has been said, confirming what has been said that you have understood. It does not include barging into a statement before the person completes speaking, because that suggests that you already have an answer before the other person has finished making their statement. And chances are, if you communicate with each other as a couple that way, you'll similarly communicate with your children in that way. Now that is a killer for communication with children, and especially when they get into the adolescent age. So you want to listen and you want to demonstrate effective communication. Now, the other thing that is important is the development of routines and rituals. Now, not many of us do it consciously, but then many of us tend to do it. So what is this all about? It's about having specific activities being done at specific times so that there's predictability. The children are able to make the interpretation that at this time this will happen, after which this will happen. So for example, it would be helpful that meals are had at specific times. Yeah, if it's lunchtime, say by 1 o'clock or by 12:30, it's expected. If it's supper time, it's by 7:30, whatever the time that works for you as a family. And at meal times, you have specific rules of engagement. For example, when we are eating our meals, we switch off the electronics so that we are able to communicate with each other. Something like that, so that it is then a matter of practice. On Sundays, we go to church, yeah, and everybody gets to go to church. And before we go to church, we prepare this way. And when you're going to church, this is our mode of dressing, for example. So you can dress this way for other occasions, and this other one is really a no-no for church. So those sort of, guidelines help to keep the kids in check and helps them to even align as members of the family and even as they relate with their peers out there. Another item that is of great importance is managing the social relations. Now, we are living in the day and age where we sort of tend to exclude ourselves as families. It is us and our nuclear family, father, mother, children, yeah, and no one else. Whilst in the days past, we had the extended family being quite closely in contact with the family. Now, the disconnect between ourselves and the extended family has presented somewhat of a challenge, because then the children have limited social networks beyond the relationship with the parents. With all the love that the parents have, there's the challenges of work, which remove them from being available, and which then means that when they are not there, the children are largely left, without any responsible adults around. So how can you as parents attend to this piece? One, you could consider to have trusted relatives staying with you and helping you to devolve your values to the children. You could also consider having a regular routine whereby you visit relatives. That is an activity that I think for most people is progressively dying off, and yet it's a very important piece because it helps to build that closeness between the children and the other persons. It gives them an alternative channel of communication. It helps to build a family. Now, what else can you do? As the children grow, it's important that progressively you give them more opportunities to make choices. It's a challenge for some parents, but it is an important thing that needs to happen. When the children are given options to make choices, as children and as adolescents, they feel a sense of responsibility and they feel a sense of ownership of much of what tends to happen. So as a couple, you want to discuss and agree amongst yourselves what are the things that you give some options to the children about. So for example, with the adolescents, it is important that you give them some form of leeway to determine the clothes that they wear. Yeah? It is convenient for the parent to go and do the shopping, but as they grow older, it's important that you allow them to be involved in the decision to choose what they wear, because they want to identify with their peers, and the parents may not be able to make that choice for them, and would make them feel quite awkward in the presence of their peers. So that's something you want to do. Something else you may want to consider is the neatness of their rooms. It is every parent's desire that the children keep a neat room, but it's not always the case that they do. Yeah? Ultimately, it should be something that is nurtured over time. Do you need to fight over it regularly? I don't think so. So I think there needs to be mechanisms that are put in place. You choose the fights that you want to pursue. Something else that we'd want to encourage the parents to do is to be more present and to be more aware of the things that are happening in the children's lives. This includes, beyond paying school fees and paying for transport for them to go to school or ensuring that they go to school, knowing when they are not in school, who are they with? Do you know their friends? You need to know their friends. Many parents don't know their children's friends. Many parents don't know the parents of their children's friends. It then means that when you're not present and your child is with their friends, you're not too sure what is happening. It's very important that that piece is attended to. How you get to know your children's friends is by inviting them over to your place and being present as they interact. Yeah, you'll get to know them. Also find opportunities to meet with the parents of those children when they come. It would also be important that you allow for them to visit their friends. The families that you have established have similar value systems as yourselves. In the absence of such monitoring, then there's a risk of them engaging in activities that are not particularly good, which include the use of electronic equipment like phones and tablets and internet access. They could go to sites that are not particularly appropriate for them. So you want to exercise parental control as far as is practically possible. You want to ensure that they don't engage in deviant behavior, like sexual activity, substance use and abuse, this tends to happen where there's minimum supervision. So the presence is important, and this is something that needs to be agreed between the parents, so that it's not one parent bearing the responsibility, it's a joint responsibility. The other thing that as parents you could do is to model the kind of behavior that you want. So in trying to appreciate what the children are doing at any point in time, you should also, as you live, let it be known, let it be a practice in the family. As you're living, let it be known, I am going to work, I am going to meet a friend, I am going to church. So as you do it, expect that of them. Remind them if they don't do it. It becomes an easier thing to adopt. Yeah? When people arrive home, say hello, find out where is so and so. All those things, they add up. The other thing that parents need to attend to is to manage their stress levels. It is known that when one is stressed, they tend to send negative energy to those around them. And this is true for parents towards their children, as it is for children towards their parents. So as parents, you have control over how you react to the things that present themselves to you. You want to manage them. You do not want to relate with your child when your stress levels are high. You need to find mechanisms to help you manage your stress. If it means finding the space and time to speak to your spouse or some other person that you feel comfortable sharing your issues with, that should be the case. If it means stepping aside and leaving the matter that is of concern, perhaps if it's between you and the child, for a bit so that you can settle down and come back to the matter when you're calm, so be it. It's just that it needs to be so part of what you do as a parent, that even the children get to know that, hey, it is the right thing to do. When I'm stressed, let me attend to the stress first before I do the other things. What else would you like to talk about? Yeah, self-care. Now, this is something that is sort of alien to us as a people, but it is an important piece. And what this means is to assign time that is for your own interests. We have tended to adopt the arrangement that as parents, all the time should be dedicated to making money, to ensuring that we take care of the children, or otherwise be with the children and be taking care of them. It's important that you have time that is you time. You time that you do things that are particularly of interest to you, that really don't directly relate to the children and don't relate to you as a couple. So it could be that one of you likes to cook, the other one likes to play golf, I don't know. Whatever it is that you find interesting, create time for it and do it. Then as a couple, you also need to create time for yourselves so that you're sitting and talking and discussing things that are of interest to you as a couple. All these things will help you to even manage your stress levels and give you a better relationship with your children. Something else that I would want to talk about is on social behavior. So we expect our children to behave in a certain way. The question is, do we guide them sufficiently? And do we guide them appropriately? So you may have the right guidance, but delivered in a way that is demeaning to them. So if it is something that is a subject of correction, you want to call them and tell them, yeah? And you also want to catch them doing the right thing. It cannot be that the only communication that is going out to the child is when they have done something wrong. Why did you do that? Why didn't you do that? You know, those sort of questions. It should be that even as you ask those questions, you do find them doing something right. You have helped your sister, that was nice. You are kind to a neighbor, that was good. You did this to a schoolmate, that is fine. So that they feel that there's a sense of balance, other than just having negative communication going out. So to sum it all up, the quality of your relationship as a couple is critical. You want to look at it, you want to attend to it. If it is suffering any form of strain, you want to get that attended to. If you're not able to attend to it by yourselves, seek external help. You know, sitting on a problem does not make it go away. Assuming that the children are not picking up the vibes is a wrong assumption. They get it. If you guys are having issues, they get it. And you don't want to get them in a space where they're feeling so stressed over something they have very little control about. So thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to your feedback on this topic.